pleased to have Januszczak. I hope I got that right, but the CEO of UBX. And if you don't know, this is the FinTech division of Union Bank, who everybody says is the big cheese in FinTech, doing a lot to drive the country ahead toward financial inclusion. So please welcome Januszczak of UBX. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me here. It's an honor to be here with the Ultimate FinTech Forum. I'm with UBX, and as you mentioned, we are the FinTech venture that was spun out of Union Bank of the Philippines. I'm excited to share how UBX is responding to help the Central Bank of the Philippines in their drive for open finance and financial inclusion. So, Richard, the basic underlying premise of open banking is that the data held by banks and financial service providers on their customers belongs to their customers. Open finance refers to the sharing and leveraging of customer permission data among banks and other financial institutions and third parties to build innovative financial solutions. At the same time, when you look at the entire world today, 2 billion have no bank accounts at all, and the remaining 4.5 billion have limited access to financial services. For UBX, our vision is opportunity and access for all. Our tagline is include everyone. And for UBX, open banking is definitely about the other 6.5 billion. Going digital is becoming a necessity in order to survive and thrive. Opportunity and access to needed technology and digitally enabled services has become apparent. We need to include everyone. We believe that data, in particular, consent-driven data portability, can be an equalizer in terms of providing access and opportunity to heretofore excluded individuals, businesses, and communities. Financial inclusion means both access to financial products, like having a transaction account, and usage. For example, using that account to make transfers and manage money rather than merely withdrawing funds once a month. By providing access to transaction data and enabling low-value payments, open banking can help foster innovation that targets the underbanked, offering legitimate alternatives to inefficient and ineffective financial practices which target the poor today. So for example, let's talk about banking the gig economy, an economy that has really taken off over the last couple of years here in the Philippines. So for the gig economy, open banking means not just access to digital accounts and wallets and digital payment instruments. Gig economy platforms themselves can embed and extend nano loans, micro insurance, based on the workers' activities on their platforms. So that's just but one example, but the main takeaway is that an open finance framework drives innovation. According to Governor Diokno of the Central Bank, the open finance framework allows for greater reach to more clients and partners, encourages the entry of more players, and increases the number of financial service offerings. Consumers will have the power to grant access to their financial data, allowing more parties to participate in the financial ecosystem, giving customers the ability and the right to reuse their financial data in new and innovative ways. At about the same time as other jurisdictions started making moves on open banking a few years ago, we at UBX noticed a few things. One, digital platforms were acquiring customers at scale and at a scale far surpassing that of traditional financial institutions. Number two, more and more, these platforms were facilitating the activities and experiences that truly matter to individuals and businesses. Three, this is readily reflected in the value ascribed to tech over banking in the capital markets. So we set out to build digital platforms for digitally and financially underserved communities not being addressed by big tech, while at the same time aggregating and virtualizing financial services for embedding into our platforms and the platforms of others. Our CCAP lending platform has registered over 50,000 micro and small and medium-sized enterprises and has processed over 6 billion pesos worth of business loans with an open end-to-end digital lending experience that matches borrowers with 13 different lenders, with more lenders joining every day. CCAP is embedded into popular platforms that merchants rely on every day, such as Lazada and Foodpanda. Bucks, our embeddable payments platform, powers over 100,000 businesses, giving them access to the widest array of payment options through a single platform and API, including the largest aggregation of over-the-counter locations in the country, making even cash payments digital for the merchant and digital to the last mile for consumers. Centro has allowed over 30,000 local merchants get online and start selling in literally minutes with digital payments and delivery integrated out of the box. UBX's Eye-to-Eye connects hundreds of financial institutions and thousands of community-based financial service providers to each other, to the national retail payment system, and to the domestic remittance networks of the country, supporting a multiplicity of digital banking services such as real-time payments, mobile ATM, insurance, and digital lending. If the interoperability between financial institutions on Eye-to-Eye as a platform for accelerating financial innovation sounds like open finance, you'd be right. Putting all of this together, for the last 2.5 years, UBX has innovated around an open finance framework. It is purposely designed to enable the customer's financial journey, enabling them with a low hurdle way to create a financial footprint, a channel for credit should they need it, and access to funds by establishing interoperability between hundreds of financial institutions and thousands of community-based financial service providers. Within this ecosystem of interrelated financial services, data subjects can move seamlessly from one service to another. This aggregation of and interoperability between financial service providers behind a single API is really an example of market-driven open finance infrastructure, allowing platforms, fintechs, and merchants to leverage and innovate across UBX services. In other jurisdictions, we've seen that open finance is occurring along two dimensions. For example, in the United States and China, mostly market pull up to now through solutions like Mint, Plaid, WeChat, and Alipay. In the UK and Europe, a heavy regulatory push with mandatory participation through CMA9 and PSD2 respectively, with a commensurate market pull through digital challenger banks. And in some jurisdictions like Mexico, with their new FINTECH law, we are seeing a regulatory push ahead of a market pull. We see many of these jurisdictions as open finance leaders, and we see UBX's existing traction representing a market pull that highly complements the regulation-driven push by the BSP with their open finance framework. Just like we connected hundreds of smaller financial institutions to the national retail payment system through Eye-to-Eye, we can leverage this reach to include the long tail of financial services and the financial services ecosystem in open finance here in the Philippines. We allow smaller players to leapfrog across the scaling gap to get them to a technology level that can place them in some aspects at par with the biggest players. We can include everyone: smaller financial institutions, non-banks, other service providers, and most importantly, their customers in the innovation promised by open finance day one. And today, Richard, I'm excited to announce Expanse, UBX's open finance infrastructure that opens the UBX infrastructure and aggregation of financial services and providers to developers. Not just consent-driven, but customer self-sovereignty at core, leveraging our blockchain-based Akin technology. The ability to leverage a decentralized finance friendly store of value through a BSP-approved stablecoin, PHX, and access to a decentralized real-time blockchain-based grid through our Eye-to-Eye network. Expanse will not just connect developers to programmable financial services across hundreds of financial institutions in the Philippines and customers to innovation through control of their data. It will connect customers and traditional financial markets to the world's most innovative financial operating system and the future of banking. This is the opportunity before us. The UBX is responding to help the central banks drive for open finance and financial inclusion. We are promoting the adoption of innovative solutions and services through our platforms, and now UBX expands to include everyone. So Richard, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank the Ultimate FinTech Forum for, in a way, partnering with us on this mission. And I'd like to thank everyone here today for sharing in our vision of opportunity and access for all. And if I may, I'd like to close by posing a question. What happens when we connect all 110 million Filipinos to a global economy without any barrier to access?
Wow, thanks, John. Yeah, a lot going on, and I'm glad you talked about the gig economy, because that's such a big opportunity, especially for Philippines, but also this thing you have about data privacy and data ownership. John, why is that such do we not have that now? I know on Facebook now you can get what they say is the information they have on us, and it's quite comprehensive information, but what can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, the idea behind open finance is really that the financial data, in this case, collected on individuals, belongs to the individual. So the first, the first stage, or at least part of the first stage, is kind of like your Facebook example, giving people access to their data. But it goes further. It's actual ownership of the data. And what that means is that the people who are stewarding or holding that data on you have to make it easy for you to access that data and to grant consent or to allow others at your discretion access to the data that they may be holding on you. And for UBX, this is the idea behind our platform. Our platform is open by design, and we are enabling financial institutions and financial service providers to make the data accessible and portable across all of the service providers, for example, that use our platform today at the discretion of the customer.
What else do people need to really start becoming employed and being paid with jobs overseas?
I mean, I guess at a very fundamental or basic level, financial technology. So just put open finance to the side for a moment. Financial technology is absolutely facilitating the ability, for example, to perform work in one jurisdiction and in a cost-effective way, move money or move a payment. So let's say you're getting paid from someone who is overseas, and how do you get that? It's like a remittance, but how do you do that? How do you do that at scale and do it in a very, cost-effective way? And so fintech companies, for example, are innovating on payments, including cross-border payments, to make that happen. And in fact, with our Bucks Payments platform, we provide innovation, exactly along those lines, as do many others. But let's take it one step further. And this is what we mean by open finance and the sharing of data with the consent of the consumer. You can imagine that, for example, a Filipino gig worker, a freelancer, is working off of a platform like Fiverr, yes, or Upwork, and they're doing work for clients globally around the world. Now, as that freelancer builds his business, he may, for example, for many reasons, need access to credit. I think it's very difficult to walk into a bank today and explain that you're a freelancer on Fiverr. And therefore, you have the means and the ability to handle a certain amount of credit. But through open finance and through platforms like what UBX is building, we can embed credit from a multiplicity of lenders and financial service providers directly into a platform like one of these freelancer platforms. And the freelancer, the gig worker, can authorize the sharing of their work data from that platform, and the lender can use that can use that quote unquote transactional data to understand the the capability or the capacity of that freelancer to pay back the credit that they would be inclined to extend them. In fact, I would even argue two things. Number one, it's going to be a much better customer experience because it's digital and it can happen online and it can happen directly in the platform. That's important, for example, to the freelancer. But it's also, I think it's also better credit risk because with the consumer or with the freelancer's consent, they have access to, near real-time data on the performance, for example, of their freelancing business. And I think that takes a lot of the risk out of extending a loan. So better, and this is what I mean about open finance driving innovation, better customer experience, lower risk, and at the end of the day, more opportunity and access for all.
And thank you again, John. Really good to have you from UBX.